Okay, so today's webcast is to look at using the Microsoft EPM, the Enterprise Project Management Toolset, and specifically today we're going to look at actually planning, resourcing and controlling our active live projects and programs. This is a series of webcasts, so please do have a look at our website and our mailers for the other webcasts looking at projects in detail at the desktop tool, and also the portfolio management and demand management. Today we'll concentrate on planning projects. For those of you who have signed in, I can see there are some people who are familiar with CPS that we already work with, and I can see there's some people who we've yet to work with. Just as a brief background for those people who this is their first time with CPS. We are a group of consultants that started in the mid-90s, coming from a background of project and program management and technology skills, really at the time where collaborative solutions were coming to the fore. Actually, back in that day, it was Lotus Notes, but then we've been working for Microsoft for over 11 years now. So we watched the growth of collaborative solutions in Microsoft through Project Serve and Project Central as it was then, going back to the year 2000, and the Sharepoint collaborative technology as that's really grown up over this time. And you'll see this in the tool as we go through and see how over the last 10 years the enterprise tool really has grown up. We are a Microsoft Gold competency partner. We've got all the key skills there, but we also do actually sit on the Partner Advisory Council for Microsoft Projects and Project Server. So we actually go over to the US and actually guide and help Microsoft in developing the tool. So we understand the technology absolutely inside out. However, as part of that, though, we are still a project, program and portfolio management consultancy. It's never possible to look at technology in isolation, so we will look at methodologies, Prince 2 for example. We will look at organisation, P3O for example, and maturity of an organisation. And as such, we are accredited by APM Group, so we're an APM Group accredited consulting organisation. I think there's 13 or 14 in the UK, and we're certainly the only one that looks at technology as well as those other methodologies. For those of you who even are familiar with CPS, and that was a familiar introduction, there is some new news to spread, which is our European coverage that we've now established. Primarily, we've worked for the last 16 years in the UK sector, but we now have a partnership with Kampanarschott, a German-based EPM solution provider, and just recently we've opened a new joint venture company in Holland to cover the Benelux region at CSX. So for anybody who deals globally or European, please come and talk to us about that. We do now have that capability, not just in Europe, but also spreading globally as well. Okay, so I want to use this slide to introduce the topic that we're going to be looking at today. So we're looking at Microsoft EPM, Enterprise Project Management. We'll look in a minute what technology that is. Really, in this webcast, we're starting from what really is the traditional approach to enterprise project management that first came about around 10 years ago and has grown through there. And really, we're thinking about planning and managing our projects. These are the elements that we'll have a look, and in a moment we'll dive in, we'll actually see the demonstration. So the things that we're going to look at are planning, being able to standardize our plans and essentially create a central repository. So rather than a plan being something, a .mpp on my desktop, we have a central repository on a server. Single version of the truth, all the plans in one place, live and up to date. And we'll see the advantages we can get through that. We'll look at our resources once we can plan our tasks. And again, we'll create a central pool of resources. So no longer am I relying on locally defined resources. All of the plans that I have we'll be planning against a central pool of resources. And we'll see then what visibility that gets of our workload now into the future and into resource forecasting, essentially. We'll then look at time reporting. Time reporting here really is dealing with how we can plan our work and our resources. Really, we're capturing of actuals and actually progressing and keeping up to date the plans we put in. So we'll have a look at the options around that. We'll consider also that there are many other things that we want to track and manage, not just plans and resources. So I've got risks and issues here as an example, but it's any sort of project control we want to put around this. Change logs, product definitions, dependencies, documents as well. And we'll have a look at how we can bring all these elements together in a means of successfully collaborating and a very simple, easy to use tool to get at the information we're creating in these central repositories. That really lends into there, but for an important part for most people is the reporting. How we get information back out of this. We'll see some standard out-of-the-box views, but we'll also see some Microsoft technology sitting in the background here to deliver custom reporting. So that's what this webcast concentrates on today. Just to complete this slide though, be aware that the tool in totality does deal with the full life cycle of a project. So we're here in the Plan and Manage today. Our other main webcast that we deliver though, within a different one, looks at really creating projects from the initial concept going through business case selection, prioritization. But we won't cover that today. Please see our other webcasts. Okay, just one final slide before we start. For those of you who are interested, this is the technology stack that sits behind this. So when you hear me saying Microsoft EPM, then this is really what we're talking about. So a standard stack of Microsoft technology. We are built on standard Windows server, central repository that I've mentioned a couple of times, and we'll see it's all held on very standard SQL servers. And our collaboration element of this is being built upon the base of SharePoint. Now, SharePoint is Microsoft's leading collaboration tool, and we'll see some of the elements coming through into this demonstration. Again, for those of you who may not be too familiar with what SharePoint is, we do have other webcasts as well, so please do go on and have a look at our website and look for SharePoint webcasts if you need a bit more background on that. But that's providing the underlying collaboration technology. And then we're using Microsoft Project Server to really create the centralization of plans and resources and everything else that goes with that. What we really care about though, and which we're going to see in a demonstration, is our interfaces to this. So we have Microsoft Project Professional here, probably a familiar technology to most people on here, a standard planning tool. Essentially, we're still going to use Microsoft Projects as a planning tool, except that we're going to save our plans and interact with resources differently. But really, we're only going to give the heavy planning tool, Project Professional, to the more heavyweight planners out there. So the people actually going in to plans, creating dependencies and creating tasks within plans. Most people in any organization we deal with actually interact through this tool through the web. And we're going to see Project Web Access. So this is going in, getting information, seeing dashboards, seeing the projects, risks, issues, documents, reports. It also includes, and we'll have a look, ability to edit plans as well. So it may not be that even the people needing to edit tools need Microsoft Project Professional. There is a cut down editing tool on the web as well. So we'll have a look at that. And we have standard links out to other Microsoft technologies, into Exchange, for example, using Link alongside some of the SharePoint capabilities. And we can, as well, extend even further and look at integrations into other systems, finance management systems, ERP systems. I know SAP is quite a big one at the moment. So that's the technology step that we're going to see today, just to put it in context for what we'll see now. Okay, so the remainder of the time we have now, we'll probably go for about 25-30 minutes, we'll actually have a look at a demonstration system, just so we can show high level the elements that we talked about just then. Okay, so you should now have seen them switch over. I'm now introducing Microsoft Project Web App. This is what we're seeing being delivered through Internet Explorer. First things we'll notice here, for those attendees who are familiar with SharePoint, you probably recognize this as a SharePoint site. And that's what it is. Project Web App is a site collection. Standard look and feel of SharePoint sites. So this is a pretty much out-of-the-box installation with some demonstration data that Microsoft have kindly spent time putting in. I suppose the first thing to say is look and feel. Out the box, fairly standard, but we can very easily configure look and feel. We can show you some examples of other clients, but really we can look at colours, logos, layout, even the navigation through the system. We can configure quite easily. And the other thing to say is this demonstration data within here. Okay, so I'm looking at Project Web App. I've come in here. I've chosen to have on my front screen a reminders section here. Well, this front screen is configurable. I might want my calendar or a list of projects. Down the left-hand side here, we can see areas of functionality of the tool. Now, I'm signed in as a fairly omnipotent user here, just for the speed of demonstration. But this is fully security and access controlled. So not only what I can do with the tool, so for example, a project manager may have a cut down list, a resource might just want to see their task list or timesheet. So it's not only controlling what I as a user can do with this, it's also access to data as well. So what projects can I see or edit or not see or not edit, and what resources do I have access to? There's a full security and access model here. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Project Center. So we'll go back to the description. The first element we're going to look at are plans. And really what we're doing is, in a very, very simplest term, putting all of our plans in one place. So we are going to standardize on Microsoft Project Server. I'm going to save all of my plans to the central repository. Okay, if I do that, then almost out of the box with actually very little configuration, then we can achieve this dashboard view. Here is my view of my world. Here are all the projects, programs, work packages, whatever we're planning, that are going on. So I have a single line here for each of those. I have displayed as column here any field from within the plan. So we have standard Microsoft project fields that you would expect: start, finish, cost, work, for example. But we can also capture custom fields in here as well. So I may want to capture projects by client, geography, business unit. Also, I'm capturing them by a stage in their life cycle. So here I'm looking at plan and manage, and I'm actually using that to filter and group this view as well. There is a Gantt view on simple start to finish dates for these projects. And I can go through and I can show whatever columns I want. We can predefine views. So I can say, actually, show me all the data fields for value, for example, so I can switch those around. And I can here just want to show, while we're in here, an example of how we can use some custom fields. Really, this is KPI tracking and using the red, amber, green indicator to track various elements of the project. Now, I could make a field subjective, and the project manager can say, yes, this is red or amber. Or I could, and I'm going to pick my example here of the project schedule field here, actually make this objective KPI. All this is very, very simply doing is it's looking at the end date for my plan, and it's comparing it to the baseline end date, and if I've slipped, it displays a red indicator, or an amber indicator if I'm in tolerance. Similarly for cost, comparing against baseline cost. So really this is our live management by exception, tracking your projects. Not as live as we get our project managers to keep their plans up to date. Okay, so that's the project center view. From here, we can also come down, and I can drill down into a plan here, maybe a program plan, maybe a project planner. So there we are. Here is the plan here. Gantt chart, various columns we want to show. Again, various different configurable views in here. So we don't need to give someone a copy of Microsoft Projects or edit rights to a plan for them to be able to come in and see it. You do notice here actually there is an edit button even if we're in the web tool. Very briefly to say it is a cut down editing tool. So we're not doing away with the need for Microsoft Project Professional in all instances, but some users or a lot of users in some organizations may only be planning very simply. So we can come in here, we can add tasks, change tasks, indent, set start dates, end dates, duration, and assign resources. But what we can't do is things like complex dependencies, complex ways of assigning resources, to say 50% or certain days, looking at any of the work equation, so looking at whether it's fixed units, fixed duration, and calculations based on that, baselining. So more complicated planning. So for those users who are familiar with Microsoft Project, is still going to be in there. But I deal with a lot of organisations. Their level of planning can sometimes just be down to 5 key milestones and track dates based against that. So we do see a lot of people who don't need the very heavy planning element of Microsoft Project. Okay, so we put all of our plans in one place. We can get our dashboard view of our world, and we can come and drill down into projects live within here. The next thing I want to look at is resources. What I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to move to Microsoft Project because I want to show, particularly for those people who are familiar with projects anyway, how we handle resources differently in the enterprise tool. Bear in mind that certainly the first few bits I'm going to show here, we can also do through the web editing tool. Okay, so here's a Microsoft project plan that I've got here. Fairly simple. I've got several plans, several tasks on here, standard water flow dependencies, and I've assigned some resources to these tasks. So actually, rather than defining my resources locally here, how I've arrived at this, so I now have the ability to build a team from the enterprise pool. If we go in and have a look at this, this is what we see. Okay, this left-hand side here is the list of resources defined on the central server. If I want Adam to come and work on my project, I can align him to the project. I can actually come in and I can see what is these people's availability. We know this because these resources, all the work that's being planned for them, is being centrally held. We know their capacity. I know Adam works a 37.5-hour week, for example, or Amy's on a part-time calendar. So I know their remaining capacity. And we'll have a look at this from a more global scale in a minute. And I can interact with here. I can use generic resources and named resources depending on my resource management process as well. Some people, this is a role for the project manager. Some people actually separate this role out to a dedicated resource manager to actually go and find named resources to provide to the project manager. So we can come and build our team from here. We then can go and assign that team to our various tasks. And from the project manager's point of view, the other thing that he wants to be able to do is see potential overloads. So I'm just going to come into a view here. This is actually a new view in Microsoft Project 2010, which is a graphical representation of the resource planning within here. And I can see I've got overloads on here, not because I haven't leveled my plan properly, is that this assignment is actually going to conflict with other projects that this is working on. So I can see that that resource is actually working on the other plan called merger and acquisition deal room. And so it's actually working on these other projects. So I can see my resource conflicts against other projects as well in here. Okay, so that's the project manager's view of resources, or the resource manager's view for finding for specific projects. What I want to do is I want to actually have a look back in the project web app here. Let's have a look at these resources now from a bit more of a global scale. So here we will see, here again is my central pool of resources. Standard view here, again grouped. So we've got information against them, what sort of resource they are. Again, standard fields, and I can also add whatever fields I like against this. Again, I might want to classify people not just by a primary role, maybe a secondary role, or a geography, or a business unit, or language, for example. We can also introduce weights to this as well. So these resources, as I see, could be costed. So I can actually start to track cost based on an hourly or daily rate, a material type resource, or even just standard cost type resources, IT hardware, bricks, paint, whatever sort of projects we're managing. But for these resources, just to look back here, we're looking at these named resources, these human resources. I actually want to know what is their planned workload now and going forward into the future for all the plans that are entered into Project Server. So here I get a nice simple view. What this is telling me is that this is the amount of work planned for these resources to do per week against the black line, which is their total capacity. So I can see this department has more work planned than it has capacity here. So we're going to run into trouble. Something's got to give. But here, actually, they've got some available time. And here's the raw data that's providing that. I can also switch this view around. I can also see this histogram rather by person, by project. So I can do a bit of quick what-if analysis here and say, what if these are in and this is out? So nice, quick and easy going, okay, this is our capacity. If we want to drop a new project in, this is the consequence of some of the decisions that we make on resourcing. And real trustable data to say what our true workload and capacity is. Okay, so we've planned our projects and we've planned our work against our resources. The next thing we need to consider, though, is we need to be able to progress these plans, and we also may want to capture actual work against what our planned work was. Okay, I'm just changing these quickly here because what I want to see is I want to see this from a resources point of view. So now I'm a resource and I can come in here and cut down to an even more simpler view. And now I can see my tasks that I've been assigned to. I can see that I'm on this project, and here are the tasks that I'm due to complete. I can filter that by an active period or just current tasks. I can drill down, so I can click on that and come and see some of the details. And what this actually allows me to do is actually feedback process to the project manager, so keeping those plans up to date. Now that could just be the project manager's role. He could just he or she could come into project professional, keep it up to date with % complete, for example. But what this does is, with me as a resource, I can come in here and I can say, very simply, I might just edit % complete. Okay, submit that. That then sends off a notification to the project manager to say the task is complete, and that can update the plan. Or I could go down to more level of detail and say, okay, I've completed 8 hours here, but actually, do you know what? There's another 4 hours still to do on this, and I may have completed that much for example, or change the end date and say, oh, we plan to end then, but actually we're going to end somewhere else. And again, I could select that, send that via an authorization process back to the project manager in the plan. I can even go a level further than that and start time phasing when I did the work. And this could take us then, if we wanted to actually extend this even further, into the land of full timesheets. So weekly or monthly timesheets authorized by a timesheet manager, and maybe then onto the project manager to update the plans. So there's a wealth of ways that we can capture actual work and progress, from the very simplest, just updating the plan, right the way through to the other end of the scale to full timesheets. So please do come and talk to us about what the various options are against requirements there. Okay, I'm just going to come out of my delegate session for this timesheet use. Okay, so we've planned our tasks, we've planned our work against resources, and we've had a look at how we can progress plans and capture actuals. The next thing that I mentioned is that we actually want to have a look at, okay, well, what else do we want to be able to control, track, manage within here? And I said I use risk and issue, for example. Documents, again, is another good example. So actually what we're looking at here, what we've done in here is I've actually set up, essentially, I've set up a website for every plan within the system. Project website, program website, for example. A couple of main things this does. One, it allows me to create central storage and management for risks, issues, benefits, documents, for example. And we'll have a look at those in a moment. It also allows me to have a front page for this as well. So I've put here just some very quickly key data and elements from the plan as well. So this could turn into our place where we go to collaborate on this project. If anybody wants to know anything, they can come to this site. Link through to the plan, see some key information here. This is going to link us into the reporting element of this tool as well, which we'll have a look at shortly. Okay, back to risks and issues then. So we can use this site as a central repository. For those attendees who are looking at this who are already familiar with SharePoint, this is probably looking quite familiar at the moment. I'm just going to introduce here a couple of very basic SharePoint elements that we're hooking into here to provide this. I'm talking about lists and document libraries. Again, if you want to know more about the wider world of SharePoint, beyond what we're looking at in context here, please do go and sign up for our other webcasts. What I've got here is I've got a list to capture risk. I always compare this to using Excel for a risk log. Now I've got a row here for every risk I'm capturing, and I've got a column for every piece of information there. However, Excel, if I use that, I'll send out an Excel sheet, people will add columns in, they'll hide columns they don't want to complete. If you do the same change in the font size, you don't realise there's a zoom. So we lose standardisation, and we've got multiple copies of a file going about, so we can't bring these all back together again. What we're doing now is we're saying risks exist here only, again, single version of the truth. And we can introduce standards about how we capture this. So here is just a very simple example of a risk log. I've got a title, I can have some allocations, drop downs, calculated, even rich text. We can associate with documents if people really want to get heavy on descriptions. And I can come and link this to elements in the plan as well. So essentially what we've done, create a central repository for any project control, not just risk or issue, and we've introduced standard against that in a single version of truth. Other things I might want to look at, I can version history this, I can subscribe to alerts to changes, I can even apply workflows to this as well. And the other element that a lot of people use these sites for is creating a central repository, again, for documents. I would compare document management to probably what I think is the worst form of document management, which is email. Now, I create a document, I email it out to 6 people. 6 people all make edits, email it between each other and onto a wider audience. All of a sudden I've got an ever-expanding number of versions of this document, and none of them are the correct version of the truth. What we do here, again, central repository. A document exists here once only. If I want to come and edit this Word document, for example, I could check this document out, edit it in Microsoft Word, check it back in when I'm finished, again create a version history. So I might actually, here is when I can have minor and major histories here, so I can go from a 0.1 to a 0.2 and then to a 1.0. If I do want to email this, we can do, but we can email a link out to people. Again, we can subscribe to alerts, and again we can have workflows. So a workflow on this might be very simple. It might be to send it to someone to review, or even authorization. So going back to version history, I might save documents as a 0.2, but I might have to get it authorized by someone to get that to a 1.0 and to release it out to the client, for example. So we have central repository, single version of the truth for documents as well. And as I mentioned, this site that we've created can then become the central point of collaboration for the project. Which brings me quite neatly on to the final element we want to cover off today, which is reporting. Essentially, how can we get at the data that we've gone to the efforts of creating central repository for and created process and standards to be able to capture. Okay, so we have out-the-box views. So we've seen, for example, we've seen project center and resource center. Out-of-the-box view is very easy to configure, very quick to get its information here, exportable to Excel if we want to go and manipulate it further. However, I think 90 to 95% of our clients that we deal with will always have certain requirements to get at custom data or present data in a particular way. So really what we're doing here is actually we've got a stack of Microsoft Business Intelligence sat behind us supporting us in this EPM platform. So what I'm just going to do now is go through and show some examples of how we can report on our data. The first one I'm going to show is the very easiest and simplest, Excel. If we know pivot tables, we've got a very simple connection to some data in the background, and here you can see I've created a pivot table here that I can very quickly, easy, come in and create reports here. So I've just created a very simple report of planned cost versus actual cost for projects. So within minutes, non-technical users can create their own views of the information that we've got within here very, very easily, very quickly. We can get rich on our custom reporting as well. Let's have a look at an example here. I think the most common custom report that we see in clients is a highlight report. So here is our highlight report. 2-page Microsoft Word output for the project. What we're doing here really is we're actually taking all the effort out of doing this. I talk to a lot of clients, and the project managers are every 2 weeks spending time producing a highlight report. The PMO is spending time every week producing something similar to the project center that we've seen. So here is an example. I can touch of a button, create my highlight reports from all the pieces of information we're tracking. So here is some of the KPIs we saw earlier. Here's a simple graph tracking costs based on our planned and actual work, and therefore costs and milestones. And even as well, risks and issues. Because we've used that list capability to capture our risks and issues in a central repository, we can report on that. And we can have other aggregation reports as well. So one may want to have a cross-portfolio or cross-program risk as well. Okay, so we can quickly get the data in Excel. We can turn our reports from touch of a button rather than laborious or manual. We can even go a step further and even thinking, rather than touch of a button, why not have reporting and views as live dashboards? So here is again, custom dashboard that I created. Same KPIs that were just broken down projects by department. We can put this on our intranet somewhere. Someone can navigate to and see our overall performance. We can get into more detail and create graphical or tabular views and make them live within a page. These views might be global, so people can come and see certain information, or we can even start personalising them. I always use the example of that executive who's constantly coming and bothering me for various reports. I'll build him his own dashboard. You know, these are the information that he or she wants to see on a regular basis. Here we are. There's your only URL. Put a link to it. Link it from your custom intranet page. And here is live information. So they can come in every day and see the statistics here. What we're looking here, we can actually use Excel to generate. So I can use the same sort of reporting we saw in Excel earlier, and it's a feature of SharePoint essentially underlying this that allows me to put Excel live into websites. So actually I can produce some dashboards really quite easily. Or I can go even further into this and actually turn this into an analytics portal and allow the user of this dashboard to actually start manipulating the data in here by various different fields or create their own decomposition tree. So we can actually make this a full data mining tool within this. A couple of other examples there. Timesheet compliance, always a good one to create a report for. Who's got their timesheets in on time and authorised on time. Okay, so just to recap what we've been through, we've looked at plans, we've looked at our resources and how we plan work, we looked at how we can capture actual work, progress our plans. We've looked at creating repositories for other project controls, risk issued document for example, and we've looked at how we can get information out of this. That has been a very high level view of what this element of EPM is, but I wanted to make sure to keep the webcast down to a sensible time. The only one thing to end on now is to consider how our clients that we deal with actually think about how this works in real life. I always say to clients, here's everything we can do in EPM, particularly when we bring in the other webcast of demand management and portfolio analysis and selection. And really it is finding what are the key problems, issues that organisations are facing and how we can use technology to do that. Really thinking about introducing a program of change within an organisation. Here on this slide I've just put up an example of process that we might go through with clients to think, okay, how can we actually use this technology to deliver real change as a program through the organisation. We start really with where we started this webcast and look at creating a central list of projects and a central pool of resources. That's the real core underlying. And then we can think, okay, what sort of track through maturity and change do we want to go through? You know, do we want to concentrate on plans, get some plan tracking in, implement some standards, really turn it into a good delivery function across the organisation? Or is our priority going through other project controls? Is it dealing with more of the prioritisation and selection of projects? So this is the sort of route that we'll encourage users to take through to make simple, effective change. Okay, that brings me up to about finishing on time. I will finish off by saying thank you very much for joining us on the webcast today. We'll come to some questions and answers in a second. Please do get in contact with us now that you know a little bit more about this solution. We'd love to have a chat to you about what changes your organisation wants to implement and how we can look at helping and getting technologies to help that. You will receive a follow-up email, so I have all of our contact details on it, link to the recording, slides, etc. So please do get in touch. And the final one, just to finish off, I'm just going to go mute my microphone just for a second. I'm going to have a look through some questions and answers. So if we haven't already, please do go to the Q&A section that you'll see there and put on any questions. I'm going to leave the microphone off for a second while we review those. Thank you very much for joining us today.